Ponyfans.com here with men's basketball head coach Matt Doherty. And coach, last year you won 20 games. You made it to the semifinals of the CIT. What did that do for this program going forward?
I think it excited our players. I think it excited our fans. There were some really exciting moments in Moody Coliseum. And you'd see the fans jumping up and down. And even the last game when we lost, they still stuck around. And I don't think they wanted the season to end. So it was a fun run, and it gave us a taste of postseason play. I think it kind of makes our guys realize we want more coming back this season.
You made that nice run, and now you're missing several key cogs from that run, including 6 seniors. And even if you take away all the points and the rebounds and the assists, what's the biggest thing to replace, or the hardest thing that you're going to have to replace about that group?
Well, I think the leadership. We as a staff talked about, I think we had 128 practices last year. We had 3 bad practices, literally 3 bad practices. We had a great group of guys. We had great leadership. With this team, I think we have a great group of guys who are going to be the leaders. And to be a good leader, you have to have good followers. So we're going to have good followers. Will the freshmen follow? Will they buy in when a senior tells them what to do? That's the fun part for me as I try to manage the program and educate guys, on how to be leaders.
All right, so since you brought it up, who are those leaders? Not necessarily the statistical leaders, but the guys who are going to take over the locker room and help you run practices and that kind of thing.
Well, I think Robert Nakunde comes out first. I think Cotton Giles comes to mind, as does Rodney Clinkscales. And also then would lean maybe second tier Jeremiah Samaris, and then Sean Williams. Sean Williams is very well respected amongst the players and coaches. Great kid, works extremely hard, and is well liked. So I think those 5 guys all have leadership potential. If I had to point to one guy, it'd probably be Rob right now.
Okay, you mentioned Rob. He's your top returning scorer. He had 14.3 points a game last year. He's arguably the best shooter in the conference. There were several times last year when you said Rob had a great game, in part because of the attention that Papadilla drew in the paint. Without that proven low post threat now, what do you do to help get Rob some good looks on his shot?
I think that instead of maybe having 2 guys as our primary scorers, I think we'll have 5, 6, 7 guys that can score. Last year was either Pop or Rob, and then maybe Jeremiah as a third scorer. This year coming up, I think we could have several guys that are capable of getting 20 points in a game, from certainly Rob to Jeremiah to Cotton Giles to Sean Williams to Cannon Cunningham to Jalen Jones to so I think there'll be more balance. So Rob may not average 14 points this year. Maybe he averages 11 or 12. But I think we'll have more guys averaging more points than we did last year. And in the bigger picture, that might help us, because then a team can't say, okay, you got to stop Pop first and Rob second. Now it's like, okay, our team scores. It's not Pop scoring or Rob scoring. If our team scores more than they do, I'll be happy with that.
You mentioned Jeremiah Samaris, and last year he really got a bit of a baptism by fire when he had to play right away. And during the course of last season, you talked several times about the progress and the growth you could see in him. What was the biggest area that he developed or changed over the course of last season, and what have you seen from him in the offseason to give you a peek at what you might get this year?
I think the biggest thing was his defense last year. He was not a very good defender early on. He maybe wasn't a great defender at the end of the year, but he was a better defender. I think he realized he had to work at it more. And then decision making. Jeremiah had a flair to his game. But that also sometimes was a double-edged sword where, the behind-the-back pass will fly out of bounds. So just understanding. He had a very good assist-to-turnover ratio. I think it was 2 to 1. Well, why not have it 3 to 1? So I think just his maturity, decision-making, and then his defense. In addition to, Jeremiah gets bored sometimes. He gets bored with the game until game's on the line. So I think Jeremiah needs to understand that he needs to stay focused for 40 minutes and not the last 10 minutes. And I think what will help him too is we'll sub more. We'll have more depth. So now instead of having to play whatever he played last year, say 28 to 32 minutes, he may not play that much, but be more effective.